Welcome to Infectious Diseases TV. We share useful information about infectious diseases. All right, today we are tackling a huge question, one that's probably been on your mind since, well, 2020. Is COVID-19 ever going to just disappear for good?
So yeah, let's just get right to it. Now that the whole global emergency phase is over, you might be wondering, could we actually wipe this thing from the face of the Earth someday? Well, the scientific consensus has a pretty clear answer, and it might not be the one you're expecting. The answer is almost certainly no. But why? Now that is the really fascinating part, and that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to talk about just how incredibly high the bar is to eradicate any disease. Then we'll dive into the 3 big reasons COVID is so darn persistent. After that, we'll explore this shift from pandemic to endemic. What does that even mean? And finally, we'll look at what our future with this virus is probably going to look like. All right, first things first, before we can really get why COVID-19 is sticking around, we've got to understand what it takes to make a virus vanish completely. And let me tell you, the bar for eradication is, well, it's just incredibly, incredibly high. Get this, in all of human history, we've only pulled this off once. We've only completely eradicated one human infectious disease from the entire planet. Just one. And that was smallpox, which was officially declared gone back in 1980. Now, that was a massive, monumental achievement for sure, but it was also possible because the smallpox virus had some, let's say, unique vulnerabilities. And this really lays it all out, plain and simple. Just look at smallpox. It had these 3 key weaknesses that we could really take advantage of. For one, it only infected humans, no animal hideouts. 2, the symptoms were always super obvious, that rash, so it was easy to find and track. And 3, if you got it once, you had lifelong immunity. You were done. Now, look over at SARS-CoV-2. It's literally the exact opposite on every single one of those points. That makes it a whole different kind of fight. Okay, so let's dig into the details. There are really 3 main reasons, and they all kind of work together why scientists are so sure that SARS-CoV-2 is here to stay, becoming a permanent part of our lives. Yeah, it really boils down to this trifecta. Our immunity doesn't last forever, the virus can hide out in animals, and it's got this sneaky ability to spread without anyone knowing. Let's tackle that first point, reinfection. So reason number 1 is reinfection. See, unlike smallpox, getting COVID or a vaccine isn't some permanent get-out-of-jail-free card. It just doesn't work that way. Over time, the immunity we build up fades. And to make things worse, the virus is a master of disguise. It's always mutating. We've all seen how variants like Omicron got really, really good at evading our defenses. And what does that mean? It means you can get infected over and over and over again. All right, the second big reason is a massive roadblock for eradication. This virus isn't just a human problem. It is set up shop in what scientists call animal reservoirs. Think of it like a permanent hiding place, a safe house outside of human society where it can just hang out, circulate, and always pose a threat of spilling back over to us. And you might be surprised by just how long and, well, diverse this list of animal hosts is. We're talking about everything from mink and white-tailed deer to our own cats and dogs at home, and even tigers and gorillas in zoos. A really scary example of this was in Denmark. Remember that? Millions of farmed mink had to be culled because a mutated version of the virus started spreading from them back to people. The bottom line is, as long as this virus can live in other animals, there's just no way for us to fully contain it. And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle. The virus is just sneaky. It's got this incredible stealth mode. With smallpox, it was obvious who was sick. You couldn't miss it. But with COVID, a massive number of people can be walking around totally contagious without a single symptom to show for it. Just let this number sink in for a second. Some studies estimate that around 40% of all COVID infections might be completely asymptomatic. 40%. That makes it pretty much impossible to track and stop every single chain of transmission. I mean, if you don't even know you're sick, how can you isolate? You can't. And so the virus just keeps on spreading, silently, right under our noses. So if we can't get rid of it, what now? Well, this is where things really shift. Our whole relationship with the virus has to change. We're moving out of that chaotic pandemic phase and into something called the endemic phase. But what does endemic even mean? It's a word we hear a lot, but it's super important to get it right. It does not mean the virus is gone, and it definitely doesn't mean it's harmless.
All it means is that the virus is now a permanent fixture, a constant presence among us, and it tends to circulate in more predictable ways, like seasonal waves.
Yeah, this really breaks down the difference perfectly. On one side, you have pandemic. That's the emergency, the explosive, unpredictable outbreak that just overwhelms everything. But on the other side, you have endemic. That's about it being persistent, but also predictable. It becomes something we handle with routine, everyday measures, not society-wide lockdowns. It's, well, the new normal. The best way to think about it is probably the seasonal flu. Influenza has caused massive pandemics in the past, right? But eventually, these viruses settle down into a predictable pattern. They become endemic, causing those seasonal outbreaks we expect every year. We never got rid of the flu. We just learned how to live with it, how to manage it with annual shots and treatment. And that's pretty much where all the experts have landed. This is the consensus. COVID-19 isn't going anywhere. Instead, we expect it to settle into a rhythm, probably flaring up in the winter months, just like the flu and all those other respiratory bugs. So this brings us to our last big topic, and honestly, it might be the most important one. What does living with the virus actually, practically, mean for all of us in the long run? Well, the biggest thing that has to change is our mindset. The goal isn't this impossible dream of eradication anymore. It just can't be. Instead, the whole game shifts to management. How do we keep severe illness to a minimum? How do we protect the people who are most vulnerable? And how do we do all that while keeping our society running?
So, what does that coexistence look like in practice? Well, it's a few things all at once. It means we have to keep a close eye out for new variants. It means we'll have regularly updated vaccines, which will probably feel a lot like getting your annual flu shot. But the real heart of the strategy is a change in focus. We concentrate our resources on protecting the people who need it most, and we start treating COVID like one of the other serious respiratory illnesses we already deal with every single year.
And honestly, that's the real takeaway. The fact that the virus isn't disappearing isn't a reason to give up or despair. It's a reason to be prepared. The good news is we now have the tools, we have the knowledge to live alongside it without letting it completely upend our lives like it did in the beginning. So, we want to leave you with this final thought. Wiping the virus out completely might be off the table, but managing it, that's totally within our grasp. Now that we know this virus is a permanent part of our world, the real question becomes, how do we keep adapting, both as individuals and as a whole society, to prepare for and live with it from now on? This is Infectious Diseases TV. Please like and subscribe.